Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of She Plays Games, the podcast where we celebrate women in the video games industry. I'm your host, Lauren, and I've been working as a journalist and content creator in the games industry for the last 10 years. On my show, I have a chat with women of many different roles within the games industry, whether it's journalism, games development, or even streaming. My goal is to give visibility to the many women in video games with hopes to inspire a new generation of women in gaming. For today's episode, my guest is Zoe Sams. Zoe works at Rockstar Games as a tools programmer, and in this role she helps many of the other teams at Rockstar do their jobs more efficiently. Given the scale of their games, it's a pretty integral role, and Zoe has received numerous plaudits for her work, such as being included in Develop's 30 Under 30. Throughout this interview, we discuss a switch from musical theater to programming and the importance of Family Support Network. I really hope you enjoy Zoe's story. This is episode 37 of She Plays Games. Hey Zoe, thank you so much for coming on She Plays Games.
Hey, Lauren, thank you very much for having me. I do have a confession to make, though, while we start. I know, but I was sitting listening to some podcasts the other day, and I always thought about how great it was that it started with like the intro music and the wee kind of jingle, and then smoothly went into it. I've only just realised now that that doesn't happen when you're recording. It's all done in post, and I feel quite daft for thinking that.
No, it's all a part of the magic. It's all a part of the magic.
Said that actually. Sorry.
No, I know. Oh my gosh, my secret is out. Every other podcast is going to listen to this now and be like, "Oh, we should do that too." No,
we did post.
Oh no, it's absolutely fine. No, but yeah, I do quite like my jingle. It's one of our friends actually made it. Brian Arnold, who used to work on an old site that we did like ages and ages ago, and he was just so kind to let me to do this for me. I like sent him he was like, what do you want it to sound like? And I sent him a few files of like dire docs from Mario 64, and I was just like, match that, and he was just like, okay, and
absolutely nailed
it. Done. But yes, no, you're not daft. It's just you're just glistened. You were what's the glamored, like they say in True Blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, so how we first met, we first met at Women in Games ages ago, like
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, which actually feels like a lifetime ago now.
Oh my gosh, it's so dead. But I mean, it was such a great conference, and it was so nice to be around like such positive energy.
Yeah, I always think the conference is such a, as you say, a positive energy to be around, because there's something so nice about having women around you that have been through similar experiences, and you don't always get that in your day-to-day work in the games industry, and I think that's definitely improving, but just there's something about being in that atmosphere and just being around people that know the same day-to-day, the same like struggles that you can go through, and it's I do love going to the conference.
I know. I really hope that, I mean, the online one was still stellar. I think they did like such a fantastic job.
Yeah, it was great to be a part of that as well. I'd almost forgotten that had happened.
I know, it's like a blip, isn't it?
It really is. But yeah, no, it was great to actually see them putting an effort into doing it online as well, and making sure that it still continued, and there was that ability to have some sort of social outreach.
And it really felt like a conference still. Like, it was weird. Like, I was like, how is this going to work? Like, how are we going to actually network with people? But like, it was fantastic.
there was parts as well that I actually slightly preferred it because you didn't have that awkward moment when you were trying to get to another talk that you had to stand up and
Yeah.
leave someone else's. It was
Yeah.
great.
I did have that once where like I was standing in a queue. I forget what it was. It was a university that we were in, wasn't it? And
Yes.
I had my little lanyard, and I was just like, "Are you guys here for this?" No. Oh,
hmm
okay. I think I was actually late. I think I might have been a little bit late for your panel, like the Rockstar panel as well. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't find where I'm going. Where am I going?
It's always the same with any kind of conference. You're always walking in like 5 minutes late, or because a talk has gone on a bit late, you're
Yeah,
having like that transition period where the next speaker just comes straight on, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I need to sneak out now, but I guess maybe I won't because I don't want to make a fuss. And
I know. And eating is just like an
oh,
impossible task.
yes, and also when you get out, by the time you do get out of a talk, the food's gone.
Yeah.
It's all gone.
Yeah. Like you just have the scraps that you have to eat, or you have to go out and then also suffer from time lags. But yeah, so aside from that, you've been at Rockstar now for about like 5 years, and you've been a part of the tools team throughout that period. What was it about that particular role that appealed to you?
God, 5 years seems so long now.
Oh, yeah,
It's just like, oh yeah, 5 years.
but it goes so
Yeah,
quickly.
it really does. I'm just like, no, I've still been in the industry for like 2 years. No. Yeah, I always knew I wanted to kind of help people, and tools programming gives you that opportunity in a way that isn't necessarily seen in a day-to-day sense. I remember there's a video that goes around about once a year that I love, that I think explains what tools programmers do really well in a strange way, because it's usually on Twitter, and whoever posts it always goes, no, was it really like this? But it was a video of the animation process behind Toy Story
Mm.
from Pixar, and Pete Docter is going on about how they animate Woody, and they've got basically a spreadsheet where they're dragging the values left to right, and that's it. And it's usually, as I said, accompanied by someone going, "What? There's no IK, there's no gizmos, there's nothing here. That's just how they like animated 10, 20 years ago." It's like, yeah, and tools programming has made that process so much easier for everyone in a way that they just don't necessarily think about now. And it makes me really excited to see what in another 20 years where the kind of advancements we're going to have made when we look back now and being like, oh, we only had IK or something like that, like it's quite exciting. And I think that's like what also drew me to it, this idea of there's always this possibility to grow and to learn.
Absolutely. And I think like that is a really great point, is that like there are these sort of roles that you don't like, you think of, like obviously with games you think of programming, but like with the specific aspects of programming that can go into a game, like it's so incredible to hear about something like tools programming as well.
Yeah, I remember there was I think it was Brie Code tweeted a long time ago about how programming is like gardening. And I always think of that as like, if programming is like gardening, then tools programming is like the soil for that. It's like you can obviously program beautiful things and create beautiful games, but if you don't have a good foundation to make the whole creation process easier
Mm.
and help your plants flourish, then it's always going to be more difficult.
And that is so apt, because crap soil, oh, you're not growing anything.
If that's one thing I've learned in 2020, growing my houseplants,
Yeah.
bad soil, nothing.
Yeah, that is a dead plant. And for like big productions like Red Dead Redemption 2, that has so many people working on it from multiple studios around the world. Like, how integral was your role in the overall production effort?
I think working in tools is such a delight because it's one of those things where you touch every area of the game, really. You help a lot of different people on as I said, a day-to-day basis, and you talk to a lot of people as well. You get to meet a lot of people and see what their process for working is like, and that's extremely rewarding in itself. But then with that, you also, while touching every area of the game, don't know anything about the game. So it's one of those ones that, like, I got to play Red Dead Redemption 2 when it came out and just enjoy it for the story that I didn't know much about. And it was so wonderful both to have the experience of being the player of that game, but also having the developer experience and being like, I helped contribute towards this. And that's just an incredible feeling. Like,
yeah. That is crazy though, like, to think, like, I think that's it's one of the saddest things, isn't it? When you do work for a company that you love their games and you love their work, but you have everything spoiled for you all the time. Like, to be in a role where you can be like almost protected in your own little bubble away from it, like that's having your cake and eating it too, basically.
Completely. Like, the whole Red Dead experience was quite cyclical for me, because when I went to study games at university, I moved out and I moved to my student halls, and my mum came up in the first week and she was like, right, okay, let's get you your big kind of your shopping and get your messages and the standard kind of, you know, what are you going to need to survive as a human being on your own? Pasta. Yeah. Okay, great. And then my dad came up the week after and he was like, well, you've got all this already, so how about I buy you a game? And I was like, great. And he bought me Red Dead Redemption. And so it was the first game I played when I went to study to make games as well. And so I absolutely loved it. And so then when I joined my job and realized that was what I was going to be working on, it was this middle feeling of, oh my God, this is incredible. And then also, oh no, I hope I don't get anything spoiled for me.
Yeah, it's like, no, wait, can I just not work on this game to not be spoiled? No? Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
So were your parents like always like involved with like your gaming? Like, did you grow up with games?
Yeah, completely. It was never seen as something that was unusual to me. I'd never kind of second guessed it when I was younger that both my mum and my dad played games. I remember when I was quite young. I think I must have been like 5 or 6 or something like that. And I got my kind of a really good report card at school. And my dad came home and he bought a Nintendo 64 and was like, this is for your report card. And I was like, oh, amazing. The only problem was it definitely wasn't for my report card. It was definitely an excuse so that he could get one as well. And it backfired completely, because when I next got a report card, I was like, where's my Nintendo 64? Where's my new games console?
Yeah.
No, it was wonderful. And then I used to always play Spyro. Spyro I absolutely loved. I even mentioned Spyro in my application for university, just being like, I think the line was, it was a purple dragon who was brave and big-hearted yet small in stature. I liked using that line. But I used to play that, but I could not for the life of me catch the egg stealing thieves. So my mum was always the one that came to do that for me. She always had it down, and yeah, so they were always super supportive, which I was very thankful for, especially when I, like, in my later years when I went to try and say to my school, you know, oh, I want to go and study computer games, and they're like, that's no, you don't do that. But luckily my parents were still supportive, so I was like, okay, no, I can follow this. And
yeah. Oh, that's so nice though. And I mean, it speaks to me as well, since I'm having like a similar experience with my daughter being 5 and she's getting really knee deep into Hollow Knight at the moment. She's just intense. Like, I know it's like it's not meant for her age, but there's not really that much stuff that's bad in it. And she's just obsessed, and it's nice to think that there might be a future there for going into games if that's what she chooses to do. But
absolutely,
it's really refreshing to hear that you've had that experience as well.
Yeah, if she could give me some tips on Hollow Knight as well, that would be great, because I'm really bad at that game.
Oh, yeah, no, she watches at the moment, because, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know how, but that is, like, one of the things as a kid that you go back and play some of the games you played as a kid, like particularly platformers. It's just like, how on earth did I do this? Like, how did I figure this out?
I'm always amazed at my younger self, just in general. Just like, how did you do that?
We've peaked. We peaked at 5. It was gone, you know? Oh, but yeah, I mean, going back to Red Dead Redemption 2, what was it like working on a project like that? From what I could see, you literally had like 2,000 people working on it, but like being in a small team. Like, what was it like?
Yeah, it's as I mentioned, it's strange that you do talk to so many people, but you kind of like within my team, it is, the tools team is quite small, and so we've got like a lot of people to talk to, and it's quite nice just to have that. There's a real social aspect to it as well, of being able to talk to people from many different studios and many different time zones. Obviously that comes with its own challenges, but it's just such a rewarding process. I really loved kind of seeing what I did in tools help people in their work, and see the kind of creation of what they could do with what we as a team helped to kind of build for them. And that's always, it's very I don't know, it always makes me very kind of smiley and very emotional thinking about how I'm trying to think of the words. It's just, yeah.
But it's really nice.
It's quite the experience.
Yeah, to just feel like I think like it's that rewarding thing where you feel like you're just a part of something that is so much bigger. I mean, you know, they have to, like, as you said, like, you're part of the soil, and it's so important to have tools programming in your game, and it's just, it's really nice. So you did a degree in computer games technology at Aberday University, which where the focus was to, quote, go under the bonnet to study and develop the engines that make computer games. Was landing a role at a much larger company where they use their own in-house engines always sort of the plan, or like even when you were finishing up secondary school?
No, I actually wanted to do musical theatre when I was when I was growing up. That was kind of my goal, really. I loved musicals and I loved performing, and I think I quickly realized that I wasn't going to make it in musical theatre. I did go to drama school for a bit, but it's quite a cutthroat industry at times, and I just knew that, like, it was good to know early on that I wasn't going to make it, and it was like, okay, well, now I can plan for something else.
I know. I had the same thing. Like, I remember I had this experience where I just looked at everybody around me, and I was just like, I don't want this as much as they do. And I was just like, this is not for me.
When that clicks, I think there's something that it seems like it should be quite sad in a way, because it is sad, like realizing that what you thought you wanted to do, you don't anymore. But there's also something very kind of accepting in that moment when it just clicks and you're like, oh no, this isn't for me. This is actually, I think I want to do something else. But it definitely then starts a whole journey of, so what do I want to do?
Yeah. So now what?
But I did realize quite quickly that I kind of looked to my other loves in life, because I did love musical theatre. So I was like, well, I want to do something that I love. So what I love doing. And the natural thing was games for me. I played games all the time, and I was listening to your podcast before with Lauren Moses, and talking about like sleepovers and games that you were playing when you were having sleepovers. And I even remember one time having a sleepover with a friend that had so many kind of consoles and things chucked about the room, and like loads of kids just all piled into a room to sleep, and I ended up sleeping on top of a PlayStation 2 because it was
very comfortable.
Like, very, very comfortable. A good ergonomic sleep there. Highly recommend.
It's actually written on the box.
Yes, that's another selling point. But yeah, I always played games, and I ended up I played a lot of The Sims when I was younger, especially in my teenage years. I played so much of The Sims, and I created custom content, which I think is the way that a lot of people get into game development. Actually, I talked to so many people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I played The Sims, and then I created custom content." I was like, "Oh, cool."
I did
And
that
it was
too.
so, oh yeah, nice. See, but yeah, I went to EA's website. I can't even remember why. I think I was looking for something about custom content on EA's website, and I saw they had like a universities page and universities they were visiting,
Mm.
and I think I was about 15 at the time or something like that, and I saw Abertay University, Scotland, and I for a long time when I was younger, I thought video games were made by magic. I was just kind of starting to
Yeah.
come to terms with the fact that video games were actually made by people. And then, but I was still like, well, if they were made by people, they were still made in the USA.
Yeah.
There was no way that they were made here. And here was a place in Dundee offering to study computer games, and I instantly became, to be honest, obsessed with the idea.
Yeah. That is like so magical, isn't it? Like it's all falling into place.
Yeah, just all at once, just like, yes, I get it now. I understand.
But no, I mean, like that's incredible. And then sort of when you were studying, did you always have like the intention that I was going to do tools programming, or did you kind of come to that as you were going through?
No, so I actually, the degree itself is quite, or at least it was when I studied. It was quite generalized, and all I knew was that I wanted to make games. I knew that I loved art and creative outlets, but I was good at things like maths and physics, and so I, when I got there, I kind of hadn't really done much programming at all, so I didn't even necessarily know if it was programming I wanted to do. I just knew that this was where those all seemed to combine. And a lot of the learning process at Abertay was kind of starting with your kind of fundamentals of computers and programming, and there was a bit of time that I was like, oh, I don't know if this is for me, especially in my second year. I was kind of getting to that bit of like, oh, I don't know, this is probably one of the most difficult things I've done. I found programming really challenging. But it was in my third year at Abertay that I found it was a module called Technical Art Applications. And in this module, they took the arts course and the computer games technology course, and they put them together in a room, and they basically said, go. No, they had they taught you about scripting in Maya and in no, it was just in Maya, and they taught you about rigging as well, and things like that, and basically combining both the arts course and the technical course, and it was this real kind of shining moment for me that I was like, this is exactly what I wanted to do. Talking about talking about Pixar again. I had seen a video about it was when I was watching Monsters Inc. when I was younger, and I remember there was a special extras part that showed Sully in a character rig, what I now know is that. But when I was younger, I didn't. I was just like, oh, that's what makes Sully move. That's really cool. And what it was actually only when I was in technical art applications I was like, that was the thing. That was it. That's what I'd wanted. And following that was just, it was like everything fell into place. And in my fourth year, I specialized in my dissertation, which I think is an important thing to do. I think university courses in general should be able to give you that generalized view for your first kind of 3 years, or in Scotland, a course is 4 years, but for your first few years at least, give you that kind of general overview, and then allow you in your dissertation to specialize. But I didn't feel that specialization was enough for me. I wanted to go further, so I went and did a master's afterwards to kind of really focus in on this idea of technical art and animation tools, and where that kind of boundary was, and learn all about them. And it was then that I was just like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I love it.
Yeah, I think that is the thing though. Like, I think when you do have like the broader idea, I think it also makes you a more well-rounded employee. Like, I mean, when you can actually understand, like, you can go into a job, can't you? And you can kind of like think, okay, well, that's what they do. This is what they do. And like, these are all the departments or whatever. But like having having actually like studied it is like such a different, it's like such a different game, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. And I think it's as well, especially with the games industry, even in its roles are so diverse of like if you're working in AAA, you have extremely specialized roles like my own, but then if you work in indie development, that doesn't exist as much,
Yeah.
and you want more generalized programmers, and you can't have, or at the moment, we don't have like a AAA games course and an indie games course. You need to make sure that your games courses are preparing you for the whole spectrum of potential jobs. And I think, yeah, being generalized is really important in that. And I think as well, like the technical art course that I talked about, because we did rigging as well, we did things that the artists were doing. It meant that we learned what annoys artists in their day-to-day pipeline and their workflow. And that was extremely rewarding to kind of put ourselves in their shoes for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was interesting what you were sort of saying about the aspects of what you're doing, in the sense that like you always think of art as being like this sort of, left brain, like, oh, right, I'm going to take big broad strokes, but there is like a lot of technical and like calculations that goes into animation that you just, again, like you said, like you don't see it until you look straight at it, do you?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's so nice that to blend both in order to create something. Like it doesn't have to be something where you've painted the Mona Lisa. I could do these kind of calculations and stuff and create the Mona Lisa in my way,
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really what video games are, is this beautiful amalgamation of the two, and it's always going to be somewhere that I think collaboration can really thrive if we kind of allow it and allow that breathing space for it to grow and have more opinions and voices kind of put into that pot. I just think it would, I can't wait to see what keeps coming out of us of the industry in the future.
Yeah, no, I mean, the stuff on the horizon at the moment is just so exciting. But yeah, I mean, I think like the nice thing about video games is that, like, as you said, like it's more of like an exact way of expressing yourself, isn't it? Like it's like, you can have a funny looking a funny looking character walking around, but like a lot of the times, like what's there is like meant to be there.
It's kind of you can put yourself in those games as well, and you can kind of, what you're saying about like funny looking characters, and it makes me think about character creation and how vastly, like, again, why I love The Sims.
I know.
And like in that kind of spectrum that you can put yourself into with anything to make an escape, really. And I think especially now that's more important than ever, to be able to kind of have that escape in some form, and to know that someone's on the other side, as you're saying, that things are so exact, to know that someone's put a lot of care and craft into what's in front of you, I think is always something that it feels like a connection between you as a player and as a developer. And I think that's always quite wonderful.
Definitely. And how pleasing has it been to see like Games Company taking steps to support women within the company through things like sponsoring women in games and like partnering with Girls Games Labs?
Yeah, I think there are two main issues that we face as an industry with underrepresented genders. One of them is obviously getting the younger generation into the games industry, and the other is retaining women in the industry when they're there. And I think we're making massive progress with things like Girls Game Lab and STEM ambassadors, video game ambassadors. On the former, I think there are a lot of great programs now to help educate young children that they can have a career in games, and I think there's a lot more resources for educating parents on that too, that careers in games are viable and a lot more we're getting to the stage that the generation of parents are now people that have grown up playing video games more often than not as well,
Yeah.
which I think helps that conversation. But I do think for the latter, for retention of people in the industry, I think we've got a long way to go. I think there's a lot more that we could be doing to make sure that, I mean, there's still a lot of, speaking specifically about women in tech, there's a lot of data that shows how quickly women leave the industry, and how the average career in the games industry is, speaking earlier, is about 5 years.
Wow.
Like, there's the chance that I could be coming to the end of my careers in games right now just doesn't feel, I don't know, it's almost unfathomable, but it's also not, because I can see exactly how people have got burnt out, and exactly how people have felt left at the sidelines. So the more that companies recognize that and do something about that through organizations, I think is wonderful, really.
No, I completely agree. And I mean, yeah, it's interesting because, again, like being a parent myself and like sort of seeing it, like it is really difficult to convince sort of even people who are like maybe 5 years older than me. I mean, I'm like 31 at the moment, and like sort of 36, 37. The generation divide is so bizarre. It's still very much that like the women with boys are like more willing to like get their boys consoles, and like more willing to talk with me about games and stuff when they catch wind that I like games. But like there's still very much a like stigma with games as far as like girls especially goes. Like it's so strange how closed-minded it is. But I do, yeah, as you said, like minus 5 years from that, like I like to think that there's more of me out there, you know, with sort of my generation. But it's so hard to break through into that, to make it more mainstream that like video games aren't the sign of the devil, and they're not going to mean that your child's going to go off and be a serial killer, you know? Like,
yeah,
it's just,
yeah.
and that, as you said, like women have a valid place in it, and there's places they can go to learn more about how they can find their role in the industry.
Yeah, I think as well, like a lot of the issue that you were talking about kind of earlier of that older generation disconnect is that a lot of the games for a long time that girls played in general, this is a huge generalization, but a lot of kind of games that were seen as more feminine games like Candy Crush, for example, or what was it, Barbie's Horse Adventures and things like that. They were seen as not games.
Yeah.
They were just not seen as, well, that's something different. It's like, no, it's still a game. It's
still completely valid. I had so many times actually at Women in Games where girls would come up to me and I'd be like, oh, well, what games do you play? And they'd just be like, oh, well, I play mobile games. I'm not really a gamer. I'm like, mobile games is valid. Mobile games is completely valid. I play mostly mobile at the moment. I mean, a League of Legends Wild Rift is on there, so I'm on. I'm tied to my phone, unfortunately. But yeah, no, it is this weird brainwashing that just because it's a game that is liked by generally more women than men, it's not a valid game. You know, like all games are fine to play and make you valid as a gamer.
Yep. No, for sure. I think so too.
And then you said as well, you've just become, I mean, well, not just, but you've recently become a ambassador for Special Effect, which is amazing.
Thank you.
What has like joining a charity event like Special Effect meant to you?
I can't even express how much it meant to me when I got the email that was asking me to be an ambassador, I cried. I
Oh,
cried
bless
like a
you.
baby. I was just like, I was so honored because Special Effect, I've known about them for a long time. They were introduced to me by a friend, but it wasn't until quite a few years later. I was like 2017 or something like that. Special Effect emailed IGDA Scotland
Mm.
that I was part of at the time. I was on the board of directors, and they emailed asking if we wanted to participate in the Great Women's 10K in Glasgow as a
Oh.
fundraiser for them. They kind of had a number of places booked, and we were like, yeah, that sounds great. And so myself and Tamea Tabori, we both ran the 10K, and the training for that, the whole process, it genuinely changed my life and
Mm.
changed my relationship with fitness. And if they can do that for me with one email, the amount that they change other people's lives through the work they do is just astounding. And so I needed to continue raising money for them. I felt it, and it's been great over the years. I've done multiple runs. I did another 10K last year. I did 15 kilometers because I said I'd
Wow.
do 10K, and then I said for each extra £100 that I raised, I'd do an extra kilometer. And I was like, okay, 15 kilometers now. That's a lot. And this year I'm going to run a half marathon for them, which I am nervous about, but
Oh my
I
gosh.
I think it's going to be just such a. I just want to give back to them in any way I can, and the fact that they felt that they wanted to recognize that with making me an ambassador, I just really hope I can help them the way that they've helped me, and live up to the expectations of an ambassador. Really, I really want to be a good ambassador for them. I'm just so honored.
I know. I mean, it's incredible what they've been able to do and how much opportunity they've given to people who have disabilities to be a part of the experience and like feel validated and feel maybe not like, well, just that they can experience things like this, you know? Like, I mean, it must be so incredible for both the people who are, well, for the ambassadors, and then also for the people making the tech, and then also the people that they're helping. Like, it just seems so incredible.
Yeah, because it gives people access to general technology that keeps them social as well.
Yeah.
Like there's so much that you can immediately be cut off from, and there's some wonderful videos on Special Effects website that I'd recommend people to go watch on their Twitter as well, that showcase some of the changes they've been able to make in people's lives, just not even in terms of games, but in terms of just being able to access social technology.
Mm.
It's absolutely incredible. They're a brilliant charity.
I always go back to that story where, did you ever hear the one where the son was like playing, the son's mother had, I think she had MS, and he introduced her to Animal Crossing,
Hmm.
and she just like it was something that she just became like so engrossed with, but it was just so lovely, like the story that even in like all the way up until she passed away, that having that experience with her son was just something that like kept her going, and
Hmm.
that is something that I think everybody should be able to experience. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
can't say enough good things about Special Effect, and that is so cool that you're able to do the 10Ks and stuff. I've never run anything. I've always been afraid to.
I was the same. I actually, for my first fundraising, used a photo of the last time I ran, which was when I was 3 years old in nursery. And
Oh.
but like, I honestly, I completely not a runner. If you asked anyone that knew me when I was at school, I was always the last person to finish any race, and
Mm.
so everyone else was sitting at the sidelines watching me do my third lap out of five.
Oh.
So they've been there for 10 minutes already. But like, yeah, it's genuinely, they helped me achieve that just by pushing me to, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd recommend it. Everyone should do a 10K if they can.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm seriously considering it, and I
Mhm.
think doing it for something like Special Effect would just be like incredible. But yeah, no, I commend you, and I think that it's fantastic what you've been able to do.
Thank you very much.
And that's the end of the episode, honestly. Like, I mean, I'm so happy and touched that you were able to come on the show and that I finally got to talk to you. And yeah, I just can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been great talking, and yeah, I can't wait to listen to more of the podcast. I wish you well with the rest of them throughout the year.
That's it for this episode of She Plays Games. Be sure to follow Zoe on Twitter at ZoeGSams. Also, if you want more episodes of She Plays Games, please be sure to subscribe and follow me on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube by searching She Plays Games, and on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at She Plays Podcast. If you want to be on the show or want to nominate someone to come on the show, you can email me at sheplayspodcast@gmail.com. See you all next time on She Plays Games.